Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ITC Secure headquarters here in Canary Wharf, where some of us have returned to the office, but our operations center where I'm sitting at the moment remains empty for the first time in our 25-year history, where our teams are now in full remote working capability. But we really have an exciting fireside chat to talk to you about today, about the latest managed security service that ITC is launching. And really, this service represents a refresh of our security tool sets, and it extends beyond the traditional detection and alerting of cybersecurity events. It actually extends into our client infrastructures and into our client teams to actually lead and in some cases support remediation and response activities to cyber attacks, ultimately helping our clients mitigate the risk of cyber attacks and the impact that attack, if successful, has on their business. This is, of course, our MDR, Managed Detection and Response service that we're here to talk about today. So thank you very much for joining us and really look forward to spending the next hour with you. On a bit of housekeeping, you will see on your Zoom panel, there's a Q&A panel. Please use that question answer session part of Zoom to submit your questions at any time. And we'll be spending some time at the end of our fireside chat today to answer some of your questions and go through any details that you'd like to cover even more. As a managed security service provider, we place great value on partnerships. And we're incredibly humbled today to have our big technology partner, Microsoft, represented by Ali Turnbull, a cloud solution architect, join us on the call today. Hi, Ali. And also a long-standing ITC client, Orlando Milford, the Chief Information Officer of Azure Consulting, a data and economic insights expert business. Hi, Orlando.
Hi there.
And perhaps, Ali, if you'd like just to say a few words to introduce yourself to our listeners before we get going. You're on mute there, Ali.
Sure, yeah, thank you. My name's Ali Turnbull. I'm a cloud solution architect and I work in the partner area of the business within one commercial partner in the UK. And my focus is to work with partners like ITC to help them build security and compliance practices.
Fantastic, Ali. Thank you very much for your support and that of Microsoft. It's very much appreciated. And perhaps Orlando, could be a word from you as well, please?
Sure. I'm Orlando Milford. I'm Auxera's CIO. I've been working with Auxera on and off for a few years, but came in-house as a full-time CIO in March this year, so just in time for lockdown. As you mentioned, I know Auxera is an economics consultancy, so we're a professional services firm that advises clients on anything to do with economics around competition, finance, regulation, and we've been doing that for about 40 years now. We've grown quite a bit over the last few years. We're about 200 people operating from the UK and Europe, but serve a global client base. And we've got some ambitious plans to take that forward over the years with technology playing a very central role in that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more about how a service like Managed Detection and Response can help you support your business strategy and really fuel and energize that growth for your business. Thank you for joining today. And also from the ITC home team, we have Aid Taylor, our Chief Technology Officer. Aid, give us a wave.
Hello there. Hi, Arno. Hi, everyone.
Well, Aid, perhaps if we kick off with you then, please. So I introduced a bit about the headlines of what Managed Detection and Response is, and perhaps scratching the surface on why it's different to managed security services of years gone by. But could you say a little bit about what is the business requirement to implement this kind of service? Are we seeing that it's increasing, and ultimately, what are the business pain points or the risk aspects that this reduces for a business?
Sure. So I mean, I guess the whole the whole point of MDR is really summed up predominantly in the R part of that, right? It's the response part of managed detection and response, and you'll notice that it doesn't the title managed detection response doesn't imply any kind of focus on a particular technology. So we're not talking about endpoint, we're not talking about network, we're talking about the management of detecting and responding to cybersecurity risks wherever we can find them, wherever we can identify them. But the key thing, like I said, is that response, because there are loads and loads of tools, loads and loads of ways to identify, if not explicit risks, but indicators that there are risks or threats to you or your data. And that's kind of the easy bit. I don't want to anger any SOC people who may be listening, but looking for things we've become very good at, actually, and the tools have become very good at, and detecting anomalous traffic patterns, user behavior has become a thing which lots and lots of platforms can do. And in fact, it's built into many more systems these days, rather than needing third-party tools to achieve it. But the key thing is, what do you do once you have that? It's all very well having it, but then you've got to do something. And if that doing something is simply sending that data as a managed service security provider, sending that data to a customer and saying, look, you've got a problem, that's not really value for that customer. And so the technology and the thought process and the skills of many managed service providers has moved forward to the point now where we are able to take action on behalf of the customer. We're able to respond to that threat. So there's two things happening there. One is there's a technological change in the tools we're using and the things we're doing, but there's also crucially a relationship change between the services provider and the customer, in that, customers now, I think the level of trust has deepened between service providers and customers. Customers have realized that the information is so vast, there's so much of it, that in many cases that help is needed, and so they're opening the virtual doors to service providers and saying, look, this run-of-the-mill stuff crucially, which is obviously just a threat, it's just anomalous, it doesn't belong, I want you to deal with it, I don't want to know about it. And that's a real change. It's been talked about for quite a long time, but as you know, Arno, we're seeing it implemented a lot more regularly these days. So it's a relationship thing and a technology thing. It's getting that data to do something actionable, to take some action on behalf of the customer to secure the environment.
Thanks, Dana. So certainly, as you said, something that listening to our customers very closely is something that is in high demand, and particularly as they have struggled to attract talent and build out, in some cases, internal teams, or haven't needed to, finding a partner who can operate as that extension of the internal team and be that trusted extension of that team is really valuable to them. Ali, clearly from Microsoft's perspective, the technology and the technological capability of the product set that we're using here, which is the Microsoft Security Stack, plays a pivotal role in allowing us to run this service. How does Microsoft see its position both in the security landscape, but also specifically focusing on giving service providers the tools they need to help remediate incidents for customers?
Sure. So I'm kind of thinking on building on what Aid mentioned, and I think from Microsoft perspective, I think the key for us really is around automation and intelligence, and us being able to provide that, that real powerful way of being able to automate all of the traffic that's actually coming in, all of the alerts that are coming in, and use that real great threat intelligence that we've got, and being able to kind of put that into a real clear way that service providers like yourselves are actually be able to create actionable, alerts. And I think that's really where our key strength is. And so, when I think about that, I kind of think about our Graph API, which in essence pretty much collects about 8 trillion security signals per day. And if we combine that with our headcount of thousands of security experts across 77 countries and add that to what it is that you guys are doing, and then layer on the AI to detect the emerging threats that we're finding out there, we aim to kind of start to reduce that alert fatigue by about 90%. And in February 2020, we kind of created an example of how Azure Sentinel used machine learning with all its fusion capabilities. And we filtered through 50 billion plus anomalous alerts and reduced that to 25 high fidelity actionable incidents, which can then tie into the ability of Sentinel to automate and orchestrate those security operations using our Azure Logic apps, and kind of providing you guys with a workspace that really has kind of done a lot of that reference and a lot of that hard work for you in advance, so that you can, use all of those people that aren't quite currently sitting behind you right now, but they can actually grab all of those high fidelity alerts and know which ones are really worthwhile working on and what they really need to do.
Again, I think you touched on a few very important points there, because certainly from an internal perspective, we challenge our teams all the time to deliver as actionable feedback and actionable instructions to our customers as possible. Now, some of the historic tools have really limited our capability to be able to do that. So I would completely agree with you that the Microsoft toolset not only enables that, but puts that front and center for the customer. For us as service provider to deliver that back to the customer through not only the strong threat intelligence, but also the automation, orchestration, all the other efficiency capabilities that we're able to realize as a service provider, and ultimately pass down as benefit to the likes of Auxera and Orlando and his team. So Orlando, Aid made the point there around the importance of the client relationship and that extension of internal capability and the trust that we need to have. Does that match up with your expectations of why you've identified the MDR service as something that would help drive your business forward?
Yeah, very much so. And we've worked with you over the years, and that trust has been built up. It takes time to get there. So that all resonates very strongly. And certainly some of the points that Ali was making in terms of just taking it up to another level that we can't do ourselves. And that gives rise to sort of some operational issues that this really helps with as well from our perspective. The first of those, we're not a regulated business as such, but a lot of our clients are. And we're getting more and more things coming in, being asked to write things into contracts or coming in on RTTs, where in the past I'd had to sort of say yes and cross my fingers to a certain extent. And this service, the level of service with the value that you're able to pass over to me from what you're doing, just means I can uncross my fingers now. So it's a lot less strain on those, which is nice. The second piece, which again really resonates, and it's to that point around the extension of our team. We're going through a major network upgrade at the moment in terms of what we're doing, trying to make sure our business is fit for the future and in that position where we can really sort of drive the expansion that we're looking for. And at the heart of that, it's got to be secure. It's got to be secure by design. I've got a very small team. There's only, including me, there's seven of us. We haven't got the capacity, we haven't got the knowledge, we haven't got the skills to build what I need. So just being able to tap into a service like this, it means that my team can focus on how the business operates, the things that the business needs to do, without having to sort of check all the bolts on the doors all the time. Somebody's doing that for me, and somebody I can trust, and in a really proactive way that I like, and is smart and intelligent and moving forward.
Glad to hear that, Orlando. We're delighted with the partnership with Auxera. Thank you very much for your support. And clearly, a big part of what makes us happen when and makes it possible when we talk about how we've enhanced our processes and our capabilities with this MDR to be able to reach in to run remediation, to run response for a customer beyond just the detection. We did touch on a big part of what enables that is the Microsoft stack. Aid, clearly that was a big decision for ITC to partner with Microsoft. ITC was the first European managed security service provider to turn on Sentinel in a 24-hour SOC in January. But can you say a little bit about why the exact reasons why ITC has doubled down on Microsoft to launch its MDR service on the Microsoft products even further?
Yeah, of course, and you're right. It's a big decision. It's a big investment, right? Everyone knows that you when you make a strategic decision to partner with somebody new, and we had a relationship with Microsoft, but not long ago we didn't really have a partnership with Microsoft, and so it was as everything with ITC, once we've made the decision, we go at it and we do it properly, and we've achieved, we've really pushed towards getting those accreditations and getting those skills in house as fast as we can. But you're right, it's we're talking about a big investment, and so the reason that decision was made is that it's become clear that the benefit of partnering with Microsoft for supplying security services It's not that they are, forgive me, Ali, it's not that they are the best in every single particular field, right? So if you were to read NSS Labs or, other laboratories are available, reviews of, say, endpoint technology, you would probably find that Defender standalone does well, but there are other things that do better in certain areas. The same for lots of other elements of the Microsoft estate. They're good, but if you were looking to do min-maxing, you'd probably find standalone a product would compete with it. But that's not the point. The point is the integration. The point is that you can implement a security solution which integrates cloud, endpoint, authentication, software as a service, including your Office 365, Azure, identity. It's the overall, and I'm struggling to avoid using the word holistic because I know that's one of my buzzwords, one of my keywords. I hate saying that, but it really is. You have a top to bottom solution, which, when you look at the two key things, the visibility of the security posture of your entire infrastructure, and the ability to leverage things that Microsoft have developed specifically for us to take action. Ali mentioned the AI and machine learning, a colossal investment in there. The bigger picture, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, right? So we can get customers, we believe we've demonstrated, we can launch a service, we can take a service to customers, which gives you a far stronger overall picture of your security and ability to take action when threats are exposed, than we could if we went and picked the best, for want of a better description, independently, the best tool from each area independently, put them together, and then had to build an overlay based on something that we'd crafted to make those things work together. So it's the integration of the solution is the real strength. And the other thing is, from a practical point of view, we often find that customers already own, have already paid for in their corporate licensing, some or all of the security features, which we're recommending they implement. Because people have bought corporate licenses which include them, and so part of our work is going through that with customers and saying, look, you already have this, let us help you configure it and turn it on, and that contributes to the provision of the service. So it's the top to bottom. It's and finally the thing, the really important thing for me is the amount, just the virtual, the amount of money, the vast amount of money Microsoft is spending on research and R&D. I'm sure Ali can probably give us a more accurate figure, but the one that's kind of thrown about it is about $1 billion a year being spent purely on security, right? And there aren't many people doing that.
Certainly, there are very few that can compete with that. I think the AD touched on a very important point, though. I think it's not often that as a service provider, we're able to help the customer save money on their security tooling by turning on some of the functionality they already have from their Microsoft licensing, from the enterprise licensing, coming in to help them get more value out of that by configuring it, and then ultimately delivering a more comprehensive service around that. And certainly we have firsthand been witnessing, since partnering with Microsoft last year and getting very early access to all the beta versions of the security products, we've seen firsthand, Ali, that the pace of innovation and the real feedback loop that the Microsoft teams have built in their security tooling, listening to customers, listening to service providers, and as I'd mentioned, I think it was in the investor call earlier in the year that Satya committed more than $1 billion of research to focus on security in the next year. Could you say a little bit, Ali, about how that's being spent, how that's being focused, and where does this focus on security for Microsoft come from?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about that. I think that figure of $1 billion was pretty much, I think, in 2017, and I couldn't find an updated figure about how much we actually spend, because I believe it's quite a lot more than that. But I wasn't able to find an updated kind of figure. But I think really for Microsoft, security has kind of been at the heart of our business model for about the last 5 years. I think people would pretty much look at us in the marketplace of where we were 5 years ago and where we are now is a completely and utterly different place. And I think, as you said quite rightly, it is the amount of money that we're actually putting into, the training, gathering the signals, and also, the amount of, effort they put into training all the people that actually do work for Microsoft, as well as all the partners, and as well as all of the people that use our products as well. There's an awful lot of money being put into that, and I think also kind of opening up that whole model as well for not just being Microsoft specific, and really kind of opening that up to open source and communities, and not being focused purely on our Microsoft products. Something that Satya has been brilliant at actually bringing in. It has changed things completely, I think, for us. And I think, our business model and our plan really is to be able to share all of those insights with everybody. And I think that's kind of what makes us a little bit different. And if we think about the last global events of the last 12 months, we've had unprecedented change to the physical and digital world. However, cybercrime really is pretty much a constant. So we've seen that cyber criminals continually and sometimes escalate their activities in times of the crisis. And defending against cyber criminals is a complex, ever-evolving, never-ending challenge. But knowledge is power, and for security professionals to create successful defense strategies, they need to be more diverse and timelier insights into the threats that they're defending against. Hence the reason that we spend so much money. And this FY, we kind of have kind of lent a bit more into that, really. We've been investing significantly to increase and improve the knowledge that we derive from the telemetry that I talked about earlier, with those 8 trillion security signals every day, along with our security experts working across 77 countries. Those people interpreting, contributing those insights gained from our advanced engineering and telemetry, as I mentioned, is really the key. And then it's about, delivering those highly synthesized, integrated insights that we share with our customers and partners. And that's what makes it different. And this September, if you're not aware of it, we released our first annual Microsoft Digital Defense Report. And the goal of that report was to help organizations understand how cyber criminals are shifting their modes of attack and the best ways to combat those attacks. And we've approached the writing and sharing of that report in the spirit of enabling the community to benefit from the insights, the observations, and the transparency generated by our unique mission and vantage point that allows you guys as customers and partners to focus your cybersecurity spend.
Thank you very much, Alan. I think we've definitely seen, as you alluded to, the cyber criminals have not enjoyed lockdown. They've definitely upped the ante and unfortunately targeting the most vulnerable, and in many instances, healthcare organizations. And we have a number that we look after here that is both highlighted in your report, but also in the work that we do here in the ITC SOC. So that's something we've definitely seen firsthand, and we know continues to be a threat for customers. So Orlando, we spoke a little bit about the need and the business requirement and the benefit to you for the managed detection response service. Was the fact that ITC have built the service on the Microsoft tool set an advantage for you? Did that factor into your decision making in partnering with ITC going forward? You're on mute there, Orlando.
I've done the thing I've always complained about. There we go. I've earned my T-shirt now. Yes and no. We're a Microsoft shop, so that obviously helps. But it's not that it was Microsoft per se that was part of it. But as Aid alluded to, it's a story that you can tell around that makes it such a compelling offering. It's that that level of investment, the ongoing commitment, the completeness of the solution, the fact that it's all joined up and joined together as opposed to just a sum of lots of different parts. So it's a very compelling story. But then again, I'm not sure there's many other companies that could have put that together in the way that Microsoft have done. So maybe the short answer is yes.
Good, thank you very much. So I'll take one of the early questions we've had from the Q&A because it's a very fitting timing, I think. And the question is, do I need to be an existing Microsoft house to onboard this service? I assume this service being the ITC Managed Detection Response Service. Perhaps Aid, if you take that one.
No, you don't need to be an existing Microsoft house, although I guess there's definitions of that. I mean, it's very rare we come across a customer whose predominant desktop environment isn't Windows, for example. But our MDR service is based on one of the points of data collection and enforcement is Microsoft Defender, and we integrate the alerts and incidents into Microsoft Sentinel, the Microsoft SIEM. So you don't have to have those things before we implement MDR. We obviously, as part of the proposed solution, we'll work with you to do that. But as I said earlier on, actually, we find most customers already own some of that functionality, right? And it's just a case of enabling it. And it's not, just to finish off on that point, we're not simply taking feeds from Microsoft Defender. Microsoft Defender is one of the core products that we need in order to provide MDR. But we also take, and Microsoft's platforms are capable of taking natively logs and events from hundreds of different manufacturers of infrastructure and applications. So the short answer is you don't have to be a Microsoft house, but we find most people are already more of a Microsoft house than they look at first blush, if you like, when we start looking into their licensing.
And perhaps we'll take a second question, which is directly related to that. It seems people are pouncing on that to understand more. But so will that support Linux, Mac OS, and other Unix-based operating systems? Is the question that's come from the audience?
It will. Yeah, absolutely it will. So there's a big list of stuff which is supported, which we can make, which we'll happily publish, make public, Microsoft publish, in terms of events that are natively ingested into the Microsoft security platform via connectors designed, built, and supported by Microsoft. But we are also very proud of our ability at ITC to craft custom connectors and write content to ingest from sources which are not officially on that supported list, which, by the way, is growing all the time. That officially supported and is growing daily. But pretty much, if it writes a log, we can ingest it, and more importantly than that, we can actually extract the meaningful data from that log, and then trigger actions according to what needs to happen once that's ingested. So we've not come across anything yet. We come across some challenges with bespoke applications, for example, but we're more than happy to work with developers to work out how we get to those logs, that relevant information, and extract it. We haven't, touch wood, come across anything we can't do yet. Yeah. So it's very broad church.
Thank you. And Ali, perhaps does that touch a little bit about what you mentioned in Satya's strategy to not limit the security tooling and capabilities and monitoring to just Microsoft products, but to take quite an open approach? We've definitely seen the number of compatible other products and connectors grow on a weekly basis. But is that a specific part of the strategy for Microsoft?
Absolutely. So I think the main part of the strategy is to make sure that our technology can be shared with anybody, anywhere, and the whole point of it is that we're a lot more powerful together, really, with all the alerts and all of the insight that we gather. Working in silos and on your own and kind of disparate isn't really going to help us attack, fight back really against those cyber attacks that we're actually seeing. So we really need to share that intelligence in order to be able to be able to combat what's actually going on out there.
Thank you, Ali. Aid, if I may come back to you, so clearly a really important question that I'm sure all of the audience will have, and they're being too polite to ask, is why ITC? The concept of managed detection response is quite well known. It's something we at ITC have been tracking and building blocks for internally for the past 2 years. Certainly We're the first firm, to my knowledge, or service provider to do it and offer it on the Microsoft security stack specifically. But if I were a customer, why ITC, and what is making ITC's managed detection and response service so different?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. We didn't invent MDR, right? So why us? So I think people will have heard me say quite regularly that there are no uniques in this business. You know, it's a crowded market. There are a lot of people offering security services. There are a lot of very good security services out there. We believe we offer something not unique, but certainly very differentiated, because for two reasons. One is we are also a cyber advisory business. So we have a consultancy practice, which provides services like virtual CISO and cyber assessments, compliance assessments, etc. But we're able to draw on the knowledge of that team to help our SOC team, our operational teams, build content and build the actions around certain events happening at customers to make it far more relevant to a customer's business. So rather than just seeing it as a technical challenge, you know, a log is technical most of the time, right? So a technical thing happens, we take some technical action. We have that other side of our business which keeps us honest and says, okay, well, let's look at what's happening, what these logs are telling us from a risk to the business point of view. And that can then help us prioritize what actions we take, whether we take any actions at all, what we automate, what we decide with the customer is too risky or too important to automate, because there's still quite a lot of that. And the other thing is that so that's one key important thing. The other thing is that we also have a very mature and experienced network operations and consultancy team. And understanding the underlying infrastructure, whether it's virtual or physical, and you know, more and more these days it's virtual, I think is key to being able to secure it. You know, a lot of the tools now give you an abstracted, slightly remote view of what's going on. As they've become more sophisticated, they've taken away, in many cases, the necessity to understand what's happening at a low level, at infrastructure, at virtual Ethernet, at IP level. But we think that gives us a real edge because we do understand that, and we're able to build our content accordingly. So it's those two things, I think. You know, the intellectual property we can create, and our ability to draw on our advisory team to make our service more relevant to a business.
Completely agree with that, Aid. Thank you. And actually, we'll take one of the questions that just come in, which touches on a point you were just making. So the question is, can the MDR service handle other devices such as switches or bespoke hardware accessible over SSH?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most popular manufacturers are already supported with Microsoft developed content, obviously, which we go on to further customize. But like I said, if it writes a log, if it's got an IP address and it writes a log, we can use it.
Certainly, no, and definitely, as you say, Aid, as well, our 20 years of running networks and doing that still on a 24-hour basis for our customers, and running secure networks means that we have unparalleled competitive knowledge in that space, taking security into the network. And Aid, if we're on a roll here with some good questions from the audience. The next question, there are a lot of anonymous questions, so we can't attribute them just yet. But and is the solution fairly quick to deploy, or is it months of planning to deploy managed detection and response?
Well, it's always how long is a piece of string, right? But what we have seen from deploying managed services not based on Microsoft services for successfully for many years, compared to now deploying them based predominantly on the Microsoft platform, it's night and day. You know, I never like to say that it's easy, because obviously, you know, I'm not the one actually having to do it, but certainly all the feedback from our men and women in the SOC is that, you know, if you are ingesting Microsoft sources into Sentinel, it is it's so much easier, so much quicker. And we're certainly seeing that in terms of the implementation time that we give our customers when they take on a service. We're talking days rather than weeks or months, and sometimes, you know, less than that, hours rather than days, weeks or months. You know, some stuff takes longer. You know, we have to craft custom content and do bespoke things with that content. Then that can take longer. But the crucial thing is it's not holding up the rest of the process. You know, we'll turn on what we can turn on really quickly, and then we'll build the custom stuff. So yeah, it's quicker, and of course that means ultimately we're spending less time doing it. The implementation shorter, it's cheaper for the customer.
Thank you very much, Ed. We spend a lot of time during this chat talking about the customer. We have one of those right here with us. Orlando, how have you found it from a customer perspective in terms of onboarding and mobilizing?
So far, it's been really good. It's been much shorter than I expected it to be. Certainly, when we were going through all the initial conversations with yourselves about that. But I think I'm trying to remember the exact date. But I think our kickoff meeting was either beginning of October or just the end of September, and we've started to ingest the first logs last week, certainly. And as Ade says, some of those are very easy to plug in, and then we're just gradually building it up. So it's been a few weeks to get us starting to see to get the data connected up and so on, and really looking forward to seeing the results of that in the next couple of weeks. I think I know it's scheduled, but I haven't the exact date. But yeah, that's been a very rapid process from our perspective, and really nice to see, because we've got so many other things going on. It's nice to actually, we haven't had to worry too much about that. Yes, of course, we've had to do some things, but you guys have carried the load. You've turned the stuff on, you've given us the plans, you've told us what to do, when to do it, and with plenty of notice, so we can get on and do it. So that's been a very pleasant process, surprisingly pleasant, shall I say. And then that means, once that's all up and running, then we, as I say, we can now focus on the things that really add value to, for our clients, or getting those tender responses out, or where we can add value, or doing some of the fine tuning as well that I'm sure will come as we get the data coming back to us.
Certainly, thank you for the feedback there, Orlando. That's a big credit to the project management team and our onboarding team, who thankfully have 2 decades of experience of doing it with perhaps more difficult and cumbersome tools. Shall we generally keep it that way? So everybody has welcomed the experience with the Microsoft tool set, then with our combined experience and project management capability to be able to mobilize that and move really quick. So that's really, I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you very much for the feedback. Ali, I'd like to touch on a bit of the Microsoft security roadmap. Clearly, this is something that, as a business, ITC is very plugged into, and we're working very closely with you on. But perhaps not everybody on the call will have that same insight and tied up nature that we do. But one big thing that we noticed as a business, announced in the recent Microsoft Ignite security event, was the coining of the term XDR, Extended Detection and Response. And we expect that the audience, our customers, will be seeing this term more and more, as is something that Microsoft is placing a big value on. So it'll be interesting to know a bit more about what that means, what its boundaries are, what does Microsoft see XDR as, but then also perhaps either through your help or linking with Ade to understand how relevant that is to what we're talking about today, an ITC service of MDR.
Sure. Sophia, could you bring up those slides, please? Thank you. So really, in our Ignite event, which was in late September, or mid to late September, recently, we've had a bit of a rebrand, and that pretty much is to kind of say, what, starting at the center, Microsoft Security has an approach to both, broaden and deepen the entire understanding of the estate. And with everything going on, that's kind of driven across two central pillars, which is part of the ITC service. So the first being machine learning, driven by our unique breadth of data, with more comprehensive signal across the modern workplace and our cloud infrastructure. And the second is, our researchers, driven to understand those new macro trends across the landscape, and looking for those anomalies, for individual companies, and kind of delivering that through two kind of main tools now, kind of giving us that XDR type approach. So Azure Sentinel as the cloud powered SIEM and SOAR sitting out there at the top, and that kind of gives you the breadth of the insight across all your tools in one place. And then Microsoft Defender, which is giving you the insight of your modern workplace and across your cloud infrastructure. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So when we think about our XDR solution on the market, this is kind of tailored through two different experiences for security professionals. The first one being Microsoft 365 Defender, which is a connected set of best of breed solutions for your data, your endpoint, identity, and your apps. So pretty much everything that sits under that Microsoft 365 platform has kind of been renamed to Microsoft 365 Defender from a security perspective. And then when we think about Azure Defender, that provides our threat protection across our server endpoints, our containers, our network, our IoT devices on the edge, and all of our managed apps. And together with the two of them, we can deliver an end-to-end XDR solution for threat protection and response across your Microsoft estate and into other clouds and on-premises and other third parties as well. So if you just go to the next slide. Thank you. And so this one really is, to kind of talk about the product names that have kind of been rebranded. So as part of this announcement, we're unifying all of our XDR technologies under the Microsoft Defender brand. So the new Microsoft Defender is hopefully you guys will see it in the same way that our marketing department does. And that's pretty much that it is the comprehensive XDR in the market today. So we protect, we defend, we respond to threats across identities, endpoints, applications, email, infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, and IoT. And the Microsoft 365, I mean, we've talked about all the alerts that we're actually able to pull in. And I think, kind of drilling a little bit back further to our artificial intelligence, really to kind of, make all of those work items, the low fidelity alerts kind of appear into high priority incidents is kind of the key and the whole point of the rebranding. And I think the other piece kind of really around this is to give you a bit of an idea is pretty much that the Microsoft threat protection, the whole point of that was to create a single portal within the Microsoft 365 security platform, and we're still doing that. It's just going to be called Microsoft Defender for 365, and Azure Security Center is pretty much just renamed to Azure Defender. So it's the same product. There's just been bits and pieces changed in the portal from that. All of our advanced threat protection products have all been renamed to Defender for Endpoint, or Defender for Office, or Defender for Identity, which actually I think makes a lot more sense. And the only one that didn't really change is our Microsoft Cloud App Security product, which pretty much just stayed as it was. So we got to keep one out of that lot. So I think the product name changes make sense. They certainly do for me, because I think having the advanced threat protection across the back of each of them was really hard to describe, and it made things a lot more difficult, I think. So hopefully the product name changes are going to make it easier for partners like ITC to explain the Microsoft story, because I think sometimes it was a little bit confusing, and the fact that we've kind of simplified it pretty much to have a SIEM and an XDR solution hopefully kind of ties all of those together. So I'll hand back to you now, Arno.
Thanks very much, Alice. So AID, XDR, MDR,
Yeah.
all one and the same in our eyes, or what should the audience take away from that?
Yeah, it looks like we missed the boat to change to XDR before we launched, though. No, I mean so what ITC offer is managed detection and response, right? And as I said, we're not specific about what kind of technology that involves. It's a business level function. XDR is is also an accepted industry term now, as well as it being Microsoft's new naming convention. But what we're able to do, I mean, in very oversimplistic terms, XDR means you can ingest logs and events from more sources, right? You can bring in signals from applications and infrastructure that will give you a much clearer picture of your overall threat. But I think we are already able to do that. We've always been able to do that in terms of our ability to create custom content and custom connectors and custom solutions to extract logs and events. So we are leveraging Microsoft's XDR infrastructure to provide the ITC MDR service. So, it's a naming convention thing more than anything. But we're not. I don't think we're in a hurry to rename our service
No, but
XDR anytime soon.
I think Aid, really on top of that really is that Microsoft don't provide that managed service, that wrapper around.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's where we really see the draw from our partners. So I think still
Yeah.
calling it MDR is absolutely still the right thing.
Yeah, because
even though Microsoft renamed it to XDR, I think I have to stick up for you there. I think that it's a terminology instead of more of a product piece. And I still think that the managed piece, we can't do that job. We just can't scale in the same way without our partners. So, certainly having ITC being able to provide a managed service is really, really important to us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ali. Yeah, exactly.
And it works for us as well. I find it much easier to explain to my business. No, these guys are managing, detecting and responding. That it's, what's the X for? Wouldn't sell internally, but MDR still works perfectly for me as a client.
Excellent.
That's it. Thank you, Orlando. And critically, as Aid mentioned at the beginning, a really important part of MDR and what makes a difference is the R, is the response, the remediation, and the proactive role that the service provider plays. So I'll go to a question that touches on that element, and I'd like to direct it to you, Aid, but also Ali, to get your view on it from a product perspective. So the question is more specifically the service. Does the service use machine learning or similar to improve both identification and remediation over time? So Aid, I'll throw that to you for the service side and what we do with ServiceNow, etc. But also, Ali, I know that the audience will be keen to get Microsoft's view on technologies and advancements such as machine learning in the use of security tooling and how Microsoft is seeing that, please. But Aid, over to you.
Thank you. So the short answer is yes. We obviously leverage the platform's inbuilt machine learning, artificial intelligence, which and Ali will be able to go into more detail, obviously, but what that really has brought to us is the ability to filter out noise and to prioritize what is left, and that is, as anyone who is involved in the management of security on any kind of IT estate will know, is the hardest thing to do. And Alice mentioned it, right? There are trillions of signals coming into the Microsoft platform all the time, and similarly, we take other threat intelligence feeds and other sources of information. Without some form of automatic processing, learning automatic processing, constantly improving, it would just be impossible to see the wood for the trees. We wouldn't be able to make any sense out of that information, those events, to decide what activities to take, unless there had been unless that pre-stage of processing happens and evolves. So our own services leverage Microsoft's machine learning and AI. We have our own automation program, which is we create our own intellectual property to help remove repetitive tasks from our SOC and from our customers' environments, and so we build that content on top of the AI and ML from the Microsoft platform. So, Ali, if I can ask you to to tell us a little bit more about how the machine learning, because that's the key thing for me, is the this huge investment in machine learning and AI to filter out noise.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly, as you mentioned earlier, we're constantly rebuilding and adding more and improving these on a regular basis. So we've got big links into the community now, and you are going to be able to, I think you can a little bit already bring some of that your own machine learning and pieces into that. So, using some of the logic apps and everything that we've got in Azure to kind of build your own machine learning about when different types of alerts and logs are kind of coming in. What do we do about it, and how do we go about identifying and joining those up, and adding to what it is that Microsoft have kind of already done. And I think one of the biggest areas that we just released is kind of around user and entity behavior analytics, and that really is kind of looking at threats inside your organization and the potential impact, whether a compromised entity or a malicious insider, that used to take a really long time, from a time consuming and labor intensive process. So, sifting through all the alerts, connecting the dots, actively hunting up to massive amounts of time, and, particularly elusive threats like 0-day, targeted persistent threats, that are really dangerous within your organization, making the detection all more critical. That's what SOCs used to spend quite a lot of time doing. And we've just released a new UEBA capability that kind of really looks, eliminates that kind of drudgery by using our machine learning to kind of pull out those actionable insights, and being able to drill down to, the user, the host, the IP addresses, the applications they're coming from, and using lots of those different type of machine learning techniques, we can now, identify quickly, that anomalous activity, and kind of allow you to determine if an asset's been compromised or a user has been compromised. So, armed with that really kind of adds to that whole story, I think. Pretty much around that, I think it's the coolest feature that we released in September. And if you haven't kind of gone to have a look at it, from a customer perspective, it's really cool. So Orlando, you'd really like that.
And it's key, right, that you mentioned it there, it's key that our analysts spend their time doing analysis, right? And the platforms allow us to do that. If we can rely on a platform, we can trust a platform to bring stuff to our attention which actually needs some human intervention and some form of analysis, then that's fantastic. We want our guys to be threat hunting and to be making our automations better, and to be dealing with the thorny problems and helping our customers fix things, rather than this sort of constant state of reaction and remediation. We want to be fixing problems, putting permanent solutions in place. And if the platform underneath us can do, I think you described it as the drudgery, which is probably is probably fairly accurate, actually. If that can be done accurately and in a trustworthy manner, then that's great. That means we can use our people to do the things they're best at for bigger benefit.
There's a lot of things humans can do that AI can't yet. So I think that's where the key kind of really comes in, and you guys having that human sense about it as well is really, really important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ali. And so as we talk about this now, and this launch of a new service, Orlando, as Auxzero has been a client for the last 3 years, and now embarking on this next phase of the relationship with MDR. Is there any advice you'd give for the audience about some of the considerations that you have to go through to get to the position to settle on MDR as the solution for your requirements, but it would also any advice to the audience who are thinking about embarking on a similar relationship and partnership with ITC?
So sort of start with the sort of second one of your questions. I was listening to the radio the other day, and someone on there was observing that people are still a bit ashamed that they don't really understand cybersecurity as much as they should. They're sort of slightly embarrassed that they don't. So find somebody who can help you. Don't use that as an excuse not to do something. It's way too important to sort of brush under the carpet. And I mean, I know because you guys helped us uncover, showed it to us. If you haven't been doing things about it, then it's probably not in a good place. and there's probably lots of things that you really should be doing, and that may well come and bite you. So do start doing something, and if the easy thing to do is to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. And I think that the second piece of that is, you need to do it with somebody you trust. I mean, as you said, we've been working with you guys for 3 or 4 years now, I think, sort of gradually building that trust. And that's not just, it does take time, but it's not just between sort of me and you guys, or me and my account manager, and so on and so forth. But it's between ITC and my organization. I've had you giving training courses. I've had you sitting down and talking to my COO. I'm not worried about bringing one of you into a board meeting if I need to, and so on. So that trust is essential, and that's what's been built and allowed us to go there. Then in terms of your first question about why something like MDR, it is that piece about it just takes my security position to a completely different level of maturity. It means I can, I'm back to Aid's point and Ali's point about I can focus my people on doing stuff that they can do to add value to the business, enhance the business, support the business, and not have to worry about the sort of the nuts and the bolts and the mechanics, because I've got a very powerful engine behind me that's learning, that's being well managed and actively managed by that combination of partners to our business, Microsoft and ITC. So it comes together in a really nice package that sort of security as a service almost, that just ticks so many boxes for me in terms of being an effective way of just knowing that I've got that covered.
Thank you, Mr. Orlando. And Aid, from the ITC perspective, any advice to the audience or to our customers in terms of reaching out, building that trust, how to identify when perhaps working with the partner can help them scale their security operations, or do things with the same budget in different ways, perhaps?
Yeah, so I mean, so I think picking up one of the things Orlando said, it's never too late, right? I mean, it's an ever evolving landscape, obviously cybersecurity, but some of the most persistent threats are the same as they were 10 years ago, and they're not always they're not always easy to deal with. You still have the biggest attack vector is links sent in via email, right? And nobody is 100% perfect at dealing with that. So if you can partner with somebody that has access to a number of specialists, intellectual property built up over the years, and great platforms to help you deal with that, then those sort of obvious things are quite often a good place to start. The other thing I would say is, if particularly with us, if you wanted to start going down the road with ITC, we always start with a consultative approach. So we'll do an assessment and find out where things are, what the gaps are, and make recommendations about what you need to get from A to B, because budgets are limited. You never, to be honest, we used to spend a lot of time dealing with queries like, the customer would say, I want to buy some new firewalls, and you would go in and assess. This was the way the industry worked. You'd go in and assess how big those firewalls needed to be and what type they were, and you'd make a proposal and make a sale. We don't have those conversations anymore, and that's because we've matured, the customers have matured, the entire landscape has matured. We now go in with the whole concept is, I want visibility and I want to secure my estate and reduce risk to my business. And actually, sometimes the answer is, well, you need a new firewall sometimes, but actually more often than not, it's a combination of, I might need to upgrade some kit and buy a service and do some user training, and it's a blended approach. So I think don't be surprised if you engage with ITC. It's not we really want to get involved early in an assessment capacity and work out from you, you know, exactly what your business does, what data it relies on, what's important to you, how we go about securing it, what the current risks are, and what the options are. So it sounds like it takes a long time, doesn't have to, but we still truly believe that's, you know, we fully believe that's the right way to go about things. We'll talk to you about your business first of all.
Great. Thank you very much, Aidan. We're at the top of that hour there, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say a really big and heartfelt thank you to Ali from Microsoft, Orlando from Auxera. Thank you not only for your support and participation today, but for your partnership going forward as well. We really appreciate it and value it. And to our audience, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for your expertise and insight. We're here at ITC very excited to be launching our new service of managed detection response. We're really excited by the additional capabilities and enhanced offerings that we're able to put in place for our customers. So we look forward to helping everybody making the digital world a safer place to do business. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.